Nicholas Westcott, Professor of Practice in Diplomacy, to present a candidate for an honorary doctorate of SOAS University of London.
Madam President, Vice-Chancellor, my Lord, Chair of the Board of Trustees, ladies and gentlemen, I now have the honour to present to you Dr. K.Y. Amoako for the Honorary Award of Doctor of Science. K.Y. Amoako, known to everybody just as K.Y., is a giant amongst African economists. Born in 1944 while Ghana was still under colonial rule, to a government medical worker, through sheer brains and unquenchable optimism and determination, KY has become one of the leading development thinkers and, more important, development doers of his generation. This is the critical thing about KY. He was never content just to think and to write about African economics. His ambition was always to do something. And something practical that would help Africa's post-independence economies transform themselves for the benefit of their people. His Ghanaian education set him up well, and he was accepted, unusually, to study for a PhD in economics at Berkeley, which, after he graduated in 1974, he secured a job as an economist at the World Bank, one of the first Africans to do so. His talent, not only for thinking, but for managing people, for building networks, for his kindness to others, was spotted, and he was appointed resident representative in Zambia before returning to Washington, D.C., and becoming, shortly after that, the first director of the Education and Social Policy Department at the bank. In 1994, after 20 years at the bank, he was poached by the UN Secretary General, Boutros Boutros-Ghali, to become head of the UN Economic Commission for Africa, UNECA as it's known, based in Addis Ababa. In that role, he worked with Presidents Obasanjo of Nigeria and Mbeki of South Africa, Prime Minister Meles Zenawi of Ethiopia, and with the Commission for Africa, set up by Tony Blair, to transform African economic policy making after the lean and difficult years of structural adjustment. I believe it's no coincidence that the African economy grew faster in the years that KY was at UNECA than either before or since. This is making a difference. He's told the story eloquently, in his own words, in a book called Know the Beginning Well, for that will bring the end well. This was published in 2020 and is essential reading for those of you who want to not only know what to do, but how to do it. That will be your guide. But he didn't stop after that. When he retired from UNECA in 2005, he returned to Ghana and, with the generous help and committed friends, founded the African Center for Economic Transformation, a policy institute that researches and promotes economic policies that respond to the practical needs of African governments and helps them transform their country's prospects. It has built a reputation for professionalism, originality, and impact that makes it now the leading economic think tank in Africa. For 50 years, KY has been at the forefront of African economic and development thinking, and he's still not stopping. Celebrating his 80th birthday this month, he's still closely involved in promoting the Ghana Compact, aimed at getting all the parties in this year's Ghanaian election to sign up to a social contract with its citizens that will have sensible and productive policies in advance of the election. Madam President, for this lifetime of service to economics, development, and to Africa, I have the honor to request that you confer the degree of Doctor of Science, honoris causa, on Dr. K.Y. Amoako.
Thank you, Professor Nicholas Westcott, for the citation. By virtue of the authority invested in me, I can confer the degree of Doctor of Science honoris causa, Dr. K.Y. Amoako. The photograph. Would you like to address? Thank you.
Thank you, SOAS, for conferring this honor on me. SOAS has always been a flag bearer for Africa, not only in the UK, but throughout the world. I want to start by warmly congratulating this year's graduates for their outstanding achievements. I'm also very much proud to receive this honor under both the leadership of President Zainab Badawi, whose book on an African history of Africa was recently published, and also Vice Chancellor Professor Adam Habib. They are among the most eminent global Africans. I also want to thank you, Professor Westcott, for your diplomatic service on behalf of the UK government in Africa. For many years, it has been exemplary. Nick, thanks for reading the citation. And my appreciation also to another SOAS professor, Akebe Okube, who could not be with us here today. I'm extremely grateful to Akebe for his friendship and collaboration over the years. Finally, I would like to thank my wife of 50 years, Philomena, and my family for what matters most of all in my life, their love. Now, my story briefly. Speaking at the meeting of African finance ministers in 1997, I declared myself an optimist for Africa. But in his foreword to a book I wrote 2 years later, the legendary UN Secretary General, the late Kofi Annan, stated that optimism should not be mistaken for romanticism, even as we try continuously for improvements in the human condition. I have lived alongside independent Africa's ups and downs, its successes and its setbacks, and its hopes and dreams. My own hope for the future of Africa is bold but achievable. A continent economically transformed in a generation, led by men and women who are visionary, selfless, and committed to inclusive growth and prosperity. I am blessed to have 4 grandchildren. One of them, Mina, is with us here today, and that is the future I envision for them and their generation. Many factors will determine whether Africa continues to make progress and move forward, but the continent's ultimate success or failure is in the hands of those who lead it. I have seen African leadership up close and personal in all forms. Strong, capable states that manage their resources well, provide visionary leadership, and reject authoritarianism and corruption are the ones that are best placed to make lasting progress. But I also believe that the drivers of these improvements will be Africa's growing youth population. Throughout my career, I have always been struck by the energy, talent, and appetite for knowledge of the continent's youth. They want to create a better, more just world. I'm convinced that they have the ambition and the tools, especially through new forms of technology, to do so, as demonstrated by the recent events in Kenya and Nigeria. As I turn 80 next week, I have been reflecting on what it means to be an optimist. I learned long ago that both an optimist and a pessimist can be wrong, but the optimist dies a happier person. That could be my secret. I have also benefited from the support, ideas, and collaboration from so many colleagues and mentors. Let me therefore sum up my 50-year journey on Africa's development with one of my favorite African proverbs. I have been up the hill and down the valley, and I have met none who is not my friend. SOAS, you are my friend, and I thank you.